Good morning. My name is Stephanie Cates and I'm with Merchant Processing Solutions. Today is another interview with one of our partners. Ben Lapscher from Expense Reduction Coaching has been a partner of ours for several years now, and they do a wonderful job with their customers, our merchants. And thank you so much, Ben, for being here. Could you kind of explain what expense reduction coaching is?
Sure. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for the invitation. And expense reduction coaching, our main goal is to help businesses find opportunities to save on their indirect expenses. Basically, anything that has to do with the general services from telecommunications, merchant processing, insurance, freight, utilities, garbage removal, office supplies, you name it. And what we do is basically we analyze all those categories, which can come up to 40 of those.
Wow.
And we find opportunities to provide the same level of service or better at a lower cost. That's our specialty. We've been in business for 27 years this year. And we are a nationwide company. And my role is the company, we handle Florida with two other partners of the company.
Wow. So let me understand. I have a business, and of course I have garbage removal, I have printing, I have telecommunications, and it could be a variety of ways, internet, phone services. And you basically, what, you get statements or bills or invoices and analyze that? How do you do this?
Very good question. Basically, our strength is based on knowledge, on industry knowledge, in finding resources of vendors that provide the best options for our clients of that specific service. And a good example is MPS, which we partnered for several years. And basically what we do is we analyze invoices, or in this case, let's say credit card statements, which, by the way, they're not easy to analyze, as you know.
Yes, we've been told that before.
Yes. So we develop that knowledge to try to understand how much the client is paying and find opportunities to provide the same level of service, in this case, merchant processing at a lower cost. So what we do typically is first we identify the opportunity. This stage, we're able to tell if a customer is paying too much or not just for looking at the statements. And then we invite people or vendors to participate in the process. In a way, we're bringing opportunities to more than 300 vendors that we work with and let them participate in the project. And we ask them to give us their best shot, their best deal. And that way, with this process, in which we typically invite 2 or 3 vendors, depending on the size of the project, we're able to get very good deals, things that probably the client wouldn't be able to get on their own because of 2 things. First, the knowledge, and then the relationship we have with vendors, like yourself, that you know exactly, and you know we bring you business. And by the way, it's a good thing to clarify that we get paid by the vendors. We represent the client. So that gives us a lot of leverage because we can ask vendors to give us the best shot and we don't get anything from them. So the vendors typically save their commission or whatever they give to a referral agent when they work with us. So that puts us in a position to get better deals. And of course, the volume that we handle also helps us with getting excellent conditions of terms for the clients.
So did I hear you correctly? You don't get paid by the vendors to use their services. So how do you get paid?
Very good question. The way we get paid is we work for the client. The client asks us to do this job for them basically for 2 reasons. First, they don't have the time to do it. And second, they don't have the knowledge. They don't know where they're overspending or which is a good vendor, which is a reliable vendor, which is a good plan, which is not. So the way we work is basically we tell the client, hey, we're going to do this job for you, do the analysis. We're not going to charge you anything to do the analysis. The way we get compensated is by sharing the savings that we can provide to the client over a 24-month period. So for example, let's say merchant processing, they were paying an average, because this goes month by month, but let's say an average they pay $500 in merchant commissions. If we lower that to 300, we're going to share those 200 with the client over 200 over 24 months. I'm sorry.
Wow.
And that way, it has two benefits. First, the payment is spread over a period of time, and then every month we're going to check the bills or statements and make sure that whatever was offered by the vendor, it's really delivered. And if there's any discrepancy, we will call you. And you know me very well, Stephanie, that we are on top of things and details, and if we see anything that we don't understand, we will ask. And on the other hand, it's a good it's the way we calculate monthly savings, because we're reviewing the actual volume, not an estimate. So every month we review the bills, make sure they're accurate, and then calculate the savings and split them with the client.
Excellent. So in reality, if someone, not everybody is your ideal client potentially. I mean, if you look at the analysis, you're not going to say, oh yeah, we'll take you on as a client if there's not enough revenue to be made there, or, tell me, who do you take on? What would have to be the benefit? Is there a profit margin that you look for in order to take on? Because you're working for free until you get savings.
Correct. So over time, we've learned that a good fit for us are companies that have at least 10 employees. We put in a number of employees. It's a lot easier to filter that way. You can ask a company how many employees you have, and you may know by that number if they have potential savings. And we know that every company we work with 10 people or more, we've been able to find at least one category that we can help. So we try to look for companies that size or bigger. I would say our sweet spot is between 20 to 200 people. That's our sweet spot in terms of targeting companies. However, I may say this: we've been surprised both ways. With smaller companies that we sometimes a vendor refers, and we don't want to decline the opportunity. Companies smaller than that size, and then we find an opportunity, and then we'll do it with a lot of pleasure. And on the other side, we've been working with larger companies that are not a good fit for us because it's a bureaucracy, or it doesn't motivate them. You tell them a 5-digit number of savings, it doesn't move them. It's a lot of work for them to capture, or it doesn't motivate them to capture those things. So I would say that's our niche, and that's what we've been able to operate for almost 27 years.
I find, and I'm sure that you'll shake your head in agreement with this one, is that my worst enemy is not other vendors, not my competitors. It's the lack of doing anything. I am overpaying for my merchant services, but that's the evil I know. And I don't want my people to have to change vendors and learn new things, because the learning curve just may take too long, and I don't want to be out of control. Do you find this to be one of the main problems, is they just don't want to accept the changes? And
yeah, definitely that's one barrier we have to overcome. But the way we do it is basically by taking the responsibility from the client. When we engage a project, we become the client, and we will work closely with the vendor to minimize the amount of time that the client has to invest in this project. Actually, we call it a high return on time invested, because they're gonna invest very little time, because we're gonna do much with the vendor, most of the work. And by the time they realize it's implemented, things go smoothly. We're the first interested in the project to run smooth, because if it doesn't, it creates a lot of bad taste in clients' mouth, and they were afraid to change before. Now there will be a lot more with other categories. So we try to make it smooth. The transition will be basically done in a very short period of time. And by the time the client realizes, they're already saving money.
Yeah, that, you know, like I said, that's been one of the problems I find is that a lot of customers, they just, oh yeah, I've heard that line before, but with you being in the middle, it's a guarantee more than just a promise, you know, because you're not gonna move that client over to someone if there's going to be more problems. You
Correct. Our
research
main,
everything.
yeah, our main asset is our reputation, our trust, and we're very picky who we work with. And you experienced that, Stephanie. We very selective which we to bring to any project. Our retention rate with vendors, it's in the upper 90s. I would say very rarely we have to switch vendors once we get them the switch them to the client. They're working, and we make sure that the relationship stays for a long time. It's a long-term relationship. So, and since we only get compensated by success, it's not theoretical savings. It's actual savings. So
Right.
we may say to a client, "Hey, there's potential to save $10,000 a year, but unless this is implemented and the client starts saving, we don't get compensated." So we have all the incentives to make sure every project gets implemented.
Yeah, I was working
Successfully.
with one of your partners on a with a merchant, and you know the merchant had everything ready, and we kept calling, trying to get them to be trained in order to use the new service, which would cut down on their fees. And it literally took us like almost 6 weeks for them to let us to come in and do the training. And it could have been via Zoom, it could have been, but oh, we're just no, we're just too busy. Yeah, we'll call you back, and then nothing happened. And your partner was very frustrated, and so was I. But once we got in there, we were able to show them all of the savings and all of the value. What I love about you guys is you also find not just the actual money piece of it, but the software piece that might be a better fit for that type of industry. For example, this guy was literally over the phone key entering credit card numbers and then having to mail receipts or take pictures of them and email them. Whereas now they send invoices and the invoices get paid from there, which is a huge savings, and they're seeing their money right away and not waiting, waiting to have to call people. And so that's allowing their salespeople to free up. Those are the kinds of things that I love about what you guys do. It's about allowing the merchants or whomever you do come in and show what's the best actual solution and rate to go along with that. And that's something that not everybody does.
Correct. One of the value added that and I think it's our differentiator of what we provide to clients. When a vendor approaches a client, he is only looking at one side of the industry, this particular vendor. We
Mhm.
look at the whole industry and we can tell which is the best fit for every opportunity. So we try to match the vendor opportunity to the best vendor for the vendors for that case. So that brings a lot of confidence to the clients because they know, well, first of all, we're not the vendors, we represent the clients. So when we bring a vendor, we already did that due diligence and we know that it's going to be a good fit. We wouldn't like them to have a bad fit. I'm going to give you a quick example. We have, for example, a category that we've been dealing a lot with, which is telecommunications. Telecommunications are different type of vendors for different type of industries. So if you're going to go with a small company, you don't need to install, for example, fiber optics, which is going to be too expensive for them for a low demand they're going to have on megabytes. So basically, with a DSL line reliable, anyone like Comcast or AT&T will do it. But if you don't know, you may sign up for a fiber contract of $800 a month, which you're not really going to need. So that's what we provide. We really understand what the client needs are and put together the best vendor for the opportunity.
And that's a great thing to know. Do you have, I know you said your sweet spot was between what, 20 and 200. However,
Yes.
is there any specific industry that is more conducive? I know you have some printing companies. I know that you work with some restaurants. I know that you work with, what are your main industries that you like to work with?
Yeah, excellent question. The good thing about our service is that it's not industry specific.
Okay.
So we can basically help any industry because every business has costs, and since we cover more than 40 categories, everybody has a telephone, everybody has insurance, everybody has some payroll, so we can help virtually every company. But specifically, the ones that we've been able to work in more categories, I would say our manufacturing is a very good segment for us because we can help them with energy, with freight, with insurance, even with merchant processing, with packaging materials, which is another category that we handle. So that's a good one for us. Also, hospitality in general, restaurants, hotels. Fortunately, some of our clients are going through a difficult time because of what's going on. But since we're in a good position to help them come back through cost savings, so they can start open their operations with a lower cost. For example, I'm going to give you another example. Some of our clients, we save them on garbage removal of our hotels, and what we did just when things starting to slow down, we immediately call our vendors and we switch them to the lowest possible frequency. So some clients, some hotels were picking up garbage 7 times a week. We switched them to once a week. Some of them were even suspended. So the customer doesn't have to spend that amount of money on that service at this time.
Wow.
Yeah. So hospitality, general services in general, brokers, insurance companies, um, medical practices, dentists. What else? I would say those are the main ones, but we can virtually operate with any company and help any company.
So, so again, you have about 40 touch points where you can save people, or merchants, businesses money.
Mhm.
The main ones that you find the most on, and why do you think, well, go ahead, give me those first, and then I'll ask my next.
Yes, I mean, we've been very lucky, I would say, or try to diversify our portfolio of categories. So I would say no category represents more than 10% of our sales. So we've been able to spread it out in several categories, and we keep adding categories. For example, 2 years ago, we added property taxes. So now we are helping companies reduce their property taxes. That's been very successful for us. Research and development, that's something else. But I would say typically telecommunications is very common. Merchant processing is very common. Insurance, everybody has insurance. Payroll processing, office supplies, um, garbage in industries and larger places, larger clients, has been very successful for us. I would say those are like the main ones, but
Okay.
typically we can add depending on the business extra categories.
You mentioned that you share the savings for a 24-month period.
Correct.
When you save that amount of money, usually, I'm not asking you for an exact amount, but just whereabouts, if the categories you gave me, someone were to do a savings, what are the range? Is it 10%, 20%, 50%? What's been your best and your worst? Just because,
Very,
$10,000 a year in garbage collection and you can save me $2,000. I think that's a pretty worthwhile thing, so.
yes. The range is between 5% to 90%. We've been able to save up
Wow.
to 90%. I'll give you an example. We had clients using cell phones and calling internationally, paying $2, $3 a minute. We got them down to cents. And some of them don't even pay anything because if you're with certain carriers. When you are abroad, there's no roaming charges. So some people, we had a manufacturer in Fort Lauderdale that was spending $8,000 in cell phones. We just switched them plans, and they end up paying 2,000, 75% less.
Wow.
Yes, but typically I would say on average is between 25 to 30% overall that you can save from your indirect expenses.
You know, I'm sure I'm sitting here going, well, why didn't that owner realize that he was overpaying and get one of his people in accounting or whatever to find another way to do it? And they don't do that. And I just don't, they'll just sit there and keep paying $8,000 a month. Wow.
I tell you why. It's an excellent question, and that's the reason why we were born. We were born precisely because clients are too busy with day-to-day operations. They just want the phone to ring. They want the copy machine to print copies. They want the internet to function. And they're so busy with the day-to-day operation, things specifically related to their business, that they don't have time or knowledge to know if they're overpaying or not. As a result, 95%, I would say, of the companies that we've been in touch or we've been engaged with are overpaying, because you can't know every single category well. And even in merchant processing, I asked somebody, how much are you paying? Well, I'm paying 3%. Well, you don't know if 3% is good or bad until you analyze their statements, right? Until you know which industry they're operating with. So we have clients, for example, your clients, or clients that we work with together, they were paying 3.5%, 4%. Now they're paying 2%. So they may be happy. They may have been happy with 3.5% because they didn't know you could pay 2%, right? So that's basically what happens, and that's when we bring a lot of value, because our customers don't know where they're overpaying, and they don't know what's a good deal or bad deal because they don't know. Another classic example: garbage. We have clients that pay $800 a month. We got them down to $150. How can that happen? Well, they didn't know. They just simply didn't know what was a good rate for garbage removal. They're all over the place. And the U.S. is blessed. That's why this business works well here, with offers, with supply, with vendors, and with options. And that way, if you don't do the research, you may pay $10. But if you do your research, you may pay $3, $4, even $1 if you do it right.
So again, just making sure I understand. You go in and you do all this research and you propose this, and at this point, you feel that you could save them some money. You obviously don't say, well, I'm going to send you to Stephanie, or I'm going to send you to ABC Garbage Collection. That's your cards being held here, I would assume. Mm-hmm. And once they say, okay, we'll go with you, you have a contract that says we're going to work for you and we're going to do these different points, but you don't make a dime until they start to save that money, and then from there you get paid?
Right. Well, we have a very good agreement. We call it agreement. It's basically 2-page agreement. What it says is that the customer is engaging us in look for opportunities in certain categories, and we have to agree on which categories. Okay. And whatever we save them, we're going to share. That's basically the basic agreement. So some people are concerned. They asked me in the past, well, what if you give the information to the customers and they call Stephanie directly? Are they going to get them off the hook? And I would say, first, Stephanie is not going to let them do that.
No.
Like many other vendors. But the agreement protects us and protects people like Stephanie, because they can only do that. They can just say, you know what, for some reason I want to give it to my current merchant and see if he can match it. And then what happened? That magically the merchant that has been overcharging this customer for 20 years, he found a nice new deal after 20 years. Why? Because the process let them know that they were overcharging. And they're going to overcharge until somebody calls them out, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we do. We analyze and we tell them and things. And I'm not. I don't want to blame the customer. It may have been a good rate, like the telephone lines where the cell phone companies were charging $2 a minute 10 years ago, but that changes.
Right.
Now it's not a competitive. So that in a competitive rate, and that's what we do all the time. We find new ways to provide the same service at a lower cost.
And it just finds it. Is it hard to get people? uh, how many analysis do you do? Because I know how many I do, not just for you, but overall, and how many I actually get. I was wondering how many do you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find a prince?
Well, we've been lucky, I would say, or we've been doing the right things because our success rate, I would say, is in the 70s, 80s. And you know that. I mean,
Yeah.
when we bring you an opportunity, I would say 7 or 8 out of 10 we close.
Right.
Why is that? Because the customer first realizes that if there's an opportunity, it's not going to cost them anything and we're going to help them implement. So there's no reason why not to do it, except that you're really lazy or you can't handle any change at all. But since we take all the burden out of the customer and we deal directly with the vendors, there's no real reason why not to do it. So that gives us a lot of leverage in closing deals.
We had a situation, you and I don't know if you remember, is that we brought a very good deal, a lot of savings to a company, and somebody on the inside, like the secretary or somebody, was like, oh, this is just one step more and we don't want, it just blew the deal out because they stayed with whoever they were with because and paying how much money, and then you had to try to go back and renegotiate. But see, they wouldn't have had they just stayed there. But because they had hired you, you then went back to them and said, listen, we're going to do this unless you meet these. And you got them on the second round to go back in and lower the rates for these people so that they could keep their same merchant, even though it was not a fun thing for me to lose, but you fought very hard for this company to get the same rates that they should be getting. And I really admire you for that because
No,
said,
yeah. We try to. I mean, we don't like to leave money on the table. So once we identify the opportunity, we know that customer, if he doesn't do anything, he's going to be leaving money on the table. If you didn't know before, you're like a happy ignorant. You don't know if you're spending or not, so you don't have anything to be regretful for. But in this case, I mean, if we have a vendor that is overcharging the customer significantly, we try to persuade the customer to switch vendors because why would you reward a vendor that's been overcharging it for so long? We try to make that point clear. But if the client, for some reason, we have cases, for example, oh, I forgot to tell you, this vendor is my brother-in-law. So in that case, we say, you know what, we don't want to create any friction between you and your brother-in-law. We try to filter those things, but sometimes they don't tell us. In that case, well, would you like me to talk to your brother-in-law, see if he can match those rates? And I would say 9 out of 10 times they do, and we preserve that relationship. So either way, we try to capture the savings, and at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. Ideally, we would like them to follow our recommendation of which vendor to work with. But if they want to keep their current vendor, it's okay with us. Sometimes we've been able to negotiate with current vendors. For example, we have a very good relationship with certain companies in telecommunication. It's such a good relationship that if they have an agreement signed and we find out that that agreement is not competitive any longer, we can renegotiate that agreement even before it's due to. So that gives us some leverage, and we tell the vendor, say, can we give them a better deal, and you keep the client. So we've been able to keep the vendor and have the service provided at low cost. And that keeps you with without any changes. People don't understand. Hey, what are you doing? So, well, why would the vendor do that for you? Because we have a good relationship with them, and we've been able to tell them, hey, this is not competitive rate. Why don't you give them the current rate? Like when you buy a cell phone, you get the new customer, they give him everything to get a new customer, and you are an old customer and you're paying too much. That's not fair with them, right?
Yeah.
With it. So we work with them so we can get our vendors, our clients a good competitive.
Yeah. Merchant Processing Solutions, my company, has always lived by the premise. First of all, it's got to be a win-win scenario. It's not just got to be win on this side. It's got to be between the client and us. That's number one. Number two, it costs you so much more money and aggravation to bring on a new client than it does to keep happy the ones you have. So good customer service and making sure your rates are still competitive and making sure that, when they get charged something they shouldn't be, you're on top of it. And that's one thing, you hold our feet to the ground on that, which I appreciate, because I've got several hundred clients, so do my partners, and they probably got several thousand. But it's sometimes not hard because we don't get the statement. We only get reported to us that there's an issue once somebody lets us know. But when we let them know, I keep telling everybody, it's not if we have a problem, how do we handle it? But it's when we get a problem, because there's always going to be something. And you've got to be able to do that customer service. And I think that some of these vendors forget that they're responsible for the post-sale piece of it, as well as the pre-sale, the promises, and then the delivery has to be spot on.
Correct. I think that's a very interesting value that we provide for those 24 months. We're checking every month that whatever was offered is delivered and no changes. And if there's something comes up, we'll deal with the vendor. This service has become so interesting or so valuable to customers that after 24 months, clients ask us, well, what happened next? I'm going to be without any monitoring for now. And with that need in mind, we launched a service called Vendor Monitor. That all we do is for month by month. It's a month by month service. We check that the statements and the invoices are accurate and according to what was agreed. So all we do is check, and it's a nominal fee. We check every month per category. We charge per category that we monitor, and that gives them peace of mind. So for a very nominal amount, you can be certain that somebody's going to be watching or checking your bills. And sometimes, like I said from the beginning, the accounting department, either they don't have the time or they don't know how to do it, especially merchant processing statements or things, or telecom statements that are complicated, how to read them. We know how to do that and very quickly identify if there's any discrepancy from the agreed terms.
A lot of people, my sister-in-law is a CPA, and she gets a lot of people coming in at tax season with their statements like this, and said the first things they say to her is, I think I might be paying too much. So I told her to do the net effective. Figure out the net effective. And if it's a cash, if it's a retail establishment, they should be doing average net effective about 1.89 to 2%, maybe slightly higher with rewards. But if it's a e-commerce or over the phone type, you're looking average about 2.5 up to 3% average. Now, our B2B customers, that they're a little bit different. And she says that 80% of them, she'll see that they're overcharging and recommend, well, you can call her or you could call your vendor and see. And then the year comes by and they've done nothing. And it's like the status quo is easier than fighting an uphill battle to save a couple of grand. And you're like,
Yes. Well, that's part
Pay
of
her as
important.
much as for her CPA services because they want her to give them. Well, why don't you call your merchant processor and get back $2,000 and stop hitting me up for less than $1,200 or whatever she's charging? It's just crazy.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's a critical part of our service that we take advantage of every opportunity. We don't leave any opportunity unless the client really tells, you know what, I don't want to capture those things, which rarely happens.
Yeah.
Once we identify the opportunity, we make sure it gets done. I have clients, for example, I bring them a vendor that that saw that client 2 years ago and gave them a good deal, but the client didn't have the time or the will to bring it to implement the recommendation. So we take the same vendor, probably a slight better deal, but it's the same vendor that they offer them that they visit the client before. And since we are 100% performance oriented and results oriented, we bring it to an end. We,
Well, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for giving the viewers this information. Now, would you just tell people how they can reach you and your partners and how they can begin a relationship, a consultation with you, especially in their reopening? This is a perfect time for people maybe to look at what they've been paying since everybody's going to be opening their doors hopefully within the next 60 days. And they're going to want to start with a little less in debt. And maybe you can help them. So give our viewers how to reach you guys.
I appreciate it. I think we had a business card, didn't you?
It'll be on the beginning of your video.
Perfect. Okay, but basically the best way to reach me is either by phone. My office phone is 954-905-7766. 954-905-7766. Or email, it's Lapscher, my first letter initial, and my last name as you see it on the video, Lapscher @erccoach.com. erccoach.com. Those are the best ways to reach me. And if you forget, you can ask Stephanie. She'll know how to reach me.
Yes.
And even if she's traveling, she's very on top of things, and she won't stop until she gets in touch with me. So I thank you again for the opportunity to let the viewers know about our service. I think I would say it's a definition of a win-win proposition. There's nothing
Absolutely.
to lose here. All you're gonna get is good news. We tell everybody you're only gonna get good news for us. Either we're gonna tell you, hey, you're paying a fair rate, stay where you are, or even better, good news is we found you an opportunity to save, which happens, I would say, 9 or 10 times.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Ben, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on today's call. And I will be sending you a copy of the video so that you can use the way you need to. Okay?
Thank you so much. And I think you should do a podcast. You're very good at this.
I used to have one for the Unilatina University.
Oh,
Did that.
okay.
I did that one for a while. You remember? So yeah, I enjoy doing this. I like asking the questions because there's things that I think about, and I think that some of the viewers say to me, "Gee, I like that question you asked." So we'll see. We'll see where my
Sure.
best lies. But thanks again, Ben.
Okay, my pleasure. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks.